The world has changed. America has changed. If something were to happen tomorrow, how self-sufficient would you be? Could you grow your own food? Could you sustain your own livestock? Could you survive? This is the We Grow Our Show with Nick and Don. Nick and Don talk about everything from politics to planting. They cover techniques, methods, and tips on how to not only survive, but thrive. Visit the website at WeGrowOurs.com. Lock and load. This is the We Grow Our Show. Get your grow on.
Welcome back to the We Grow Our Show, where we try to educate, entertain, and, well, we don't really try anything. We're just having a good time.
We act like we're inebriated.
Exactly. We had a comment, which we love the comments. If you got negative comments, by all means, we enjoy those too. In fact, sometimes more so than the positive ones. But, yeah, we had a comment. Was it Heidi or Haley?
I don't want to call anybody out.
We'll go on the website. You find it out. Anyway, said, I don't like it at all. It was very social and they seemed inebriated. Well, that's really hard for a non-drinking, non-smoking Mormon to be inebriated. And Don, you're pretty well dry too.
Yeah, I mean, I like to drink, but
yeah,
not like a fish or nothing.
We record at like 5 o'clock right after work, and to get lit between 5 and 5:15, you got to be really pushing it.
Yeah, you do. And yeah, neither of us are drinkers, so we're not inebriated, I promise.
No, we're just naturally this retarded.
You got it.
Anyway, this week we've got a great guest on.
Yes.
Very excited for this interview. This is somebody that I've looked up to on Facebook for a long time.
Absolutely. She runs a podcast network.
That's right.
Has some great podcasts on there. She's got an amazing website with some really good articles.
Mm-hmm.
And she has really opened up the industry to prepping and women.
That's true. Prepping has kind of been it's kind of the boys' club. It has been in the past. Stockpiling guns and ammo and MREs, but, our guest is Lisa Bedford, and she's done a great job of bringing women on board. And it's not just, guns and ammo. Now it's canning and preparing the household and how to handle your kids in an emergency situation, how to keep people calm. And she's written a number of books. She's got a lot of stuff going. So
yeah.
I'm excited to have her on.
Absolutely. And before we have her on, I want to do a special shout out this week to our new sponsor. Yay!
Yay for sponsors.
So we've got a sponsor. We want you guys to try and help us out by helping them out. Butt Out e-cigarettes, the non-smoke shop. They have a couple of physical locations, down on 708 East Virginia Avenue in Phoenix, 6601 North 47th Avenue in Glendale, 401 South Mill Avenue in Tempe, and online at buttoutecigs.com. That's BUTTOUT, ecigs.com.
Nice.
Yes. Thank you guys for being our first official sponsor. We appreciate it. Helps us do this, helps us keep going and pay for some of the expenses that the podcast happens to incur.
Yeah. Woo. Thanks, guys. Yeah.
Hey,
jacked.
These guys have kept me off of cigarettes now. So they've got, I don't know if anybody out there, in fact, I know a couple of you guys out there because you've told me when we did a shout out, long time ago for a couple of different e-cig companies, a couple of people have gotten back to me and said, hey, I'm a vapor too. And, I know it's a big fad, but it's not a fad to the people who've quit smoking after 20 years and moved to these vapor cigarettes. These things that you buy at the Circle K's and, these disposable, big tobacco cigarettes is basically what they are with vapor. They suck. Mm-hmm. And when you get into actual vaping and doing that stuff, you're getting flavor, you're getting still some nicotine. I'm almost off of my nicotine completely. I'm down to about the lowest level you can go. And a lot of times I smoke something with no nicotine in it. And I'm not saying this is healthy, but man, you sure do feel better. So if you guys are even thinking of this.
I mean, what you were telling me is your cilia actually are fired back up and you're
Oh yeah,
not hacking.
I'm not hacking. I can walk a lot further without hike up Thunderbird Mountain down here and, not as much. I'm still a fat guy. It doesn't fix that, but, I can breathe a whole lot better than I was. So maybe that'll help fix it now that I can breathe and actually move,
Did you say there are some diet program deals?
Yeah, there's a lot of people that do this when you have a sweet craving. You can have, I know, Bud Out is actually coming out with a new flavor and it's a chocolate mint. And I got to taste it. I got to taste it yesterday. It's freaking awesome. It tastes like one of those little Andes mints that you get on you know what I'm talking about?
Oh yeah.
Little Andes.
Yeah, when you go to Olive Garden, it's not my favorite part, but it's definitely a nice treat walking out the door.
Exactly. Yeah, they've got, all sorts of kind of dessert flavors like that. They've got an orange glaze, cinnamon thing that's just, or orange glaze, whatever they're called, little
dude, hand
Danish
motions.
type
We're
thing.
being recorded, not with a video camera. Stop with the hand motions.
Yeah, they've got all sorts of flavors and they'll let you taste them for free. So you go in there and they've got all these flavors set up. You can go in, you can taste it. This is not for kids, 18 plus only, please. And if you're a smoker, stop and just at least try this. You quit for a week and you've paid for it, for goodness sakes. I mean, it's just, unless you make a hobby out of it, which is kind of what I've done.
Yeah. I've noticed you're not exactly making money off of yours.
No.
There's new gadgets and batteries and everything else going into yours.
Yeah,
but you can do it fairly inexpensive.
I'm a geek. I like to tinker with things. When you start talking about building a coil, I'm like, I'm all over that. What's Ohm's law? Yeah, I know that. So you start working with your ohms and different gauges of wire, and you can kind of into that, but you don't have to. You can do this very simply. It's easy and it can help somebody get off a cigarette. So the biggest challenge I've seen most of these guys get is people who have tried it and didn't like it is they didn't go to the right place and they sold them something that maybe they sold them on a 3 milligram nicotine level and they happen to smoke 2 packs a day. It's not even close to equivalent. So you've got to find that balance and give it a little bit of time to find what's doing it. Anyway, enough on e-cigs. Thanks guys, over at Bud Out, Matt. I appreciate you guys sponsoring us. So
yeah, thank you very much.
Yeah, go give them a like on Facebook or something.
All right.
In fact, give us a like on Facebook. Huh?
Yeah, while you're there.
Yeah. Facebook.com/WeGrowOurs.
Anyway, on that note, next up we'll have Lisa Bedford. On the line with us, we've got Lisa Bedford, the survival mom. How are you doing today, Lisa?
I'm doing great. How are you?
Doing great. Even better now that you've joined us. I'm really excited. I've actually been following your blog and your Facebook page for quite some time, and it's a real treat to get to talk to you.
Well, thank you. Thank you. I'm happy to be here.
And I believe you used to live here in Arizona. Is that recently changed, or are you still here in town?
No, my husband actually got a job in Texas, and he moved here last August, and the kids and I followed a short time later, and we're all settled in. We don't have every box unpacked, but we're getting there.
Yeah, I think that I moved into my house like 5 years ago, and there's still boxes we haven't gotten to.
Yeah, same with me.
Yeah.
Every time we move, I don't unpack. So,
Oh, it's prepared for the
That's
next
funny.
move, right? That's preparedness.
Yeah, we had to start.
Awesome. So Lisa, I'd say before you came onto the scene, the prepping world was all guns and ammo stockpiled and MREs, and you've really brought the lighter side of prepping. You've really brought the girls on board. So
Yeah. When I first got into it, I think everybody gets into this because of fear. Whether they're just, terrified or frozen or they're mildly concerned, at some level there is some fear involved. And that is what, propelled me to begin looking around and what can I do to be proactive. This was about 6 years ago. And you're right, it was all guns and ammo and, photos of the United States Capitol building in flames but it was for right then that was good. I needed the information about food storage and I needed that information, but it occurred to me that there really wasn't even a niche other than, I think, some LDS food storage sites that were geared toward women. And one night that just popped out at me.
Interesting. So you talk about being fear-driven, which we all are on some level. We have that desire to not be afraid. So what was it that tipped you over the edge? What brought you to become a survivalist?
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. I think from a mom's perspective, I think whenever we see our family in jeopardy or in potential jeopardy, I think something just clicks in our brains. And so for me, it was starting to dig around, and I was looking at my husband was in the building trades in Phoenix. He had a company, and we started seeing, good, solid, well-meaning and hardworking families all of a sudden losing homes and losing businesses. And I have just been never one to say that will never happen to me. I'm just too much of a realist for that. And as I started to dig around on the internet, I read somewhere the name Survival Blog, and that is where I started. And lots of good, solid information there. A lot of it was terrifying, but I remember one time my husband came home from work, and I was sitting in front of my computer. I had been there pretty much all day. I was in my pajamas, and I was literally frozen in fear. And I was researching survival real estate and reading about, homes that were made of concrete and they were safe from rifle fire up to so many hundreds of yards. And he came in and he, what's going on, Lisa? And, I was, because the thing that was driving me was the desire for my family to be safe. And I think that really just resounds with an awful lot of moms and dads around the country.
Oh, yeah. It sounds like you went into Mama Bear mode.
Yes, I did. Yeah, that's a good way to put it.
Now you've taken that fear and you've built on that. I mean, you've got a couple of books out. You've actually got your own podcast network, and you've gone out and reached a whole lot of people. So what's your kind of your favorite part of that, or, what's your favorite part of that?
Mm-hmm. For me, it's been, just personal, just kind of a personal growth. Sounds maybe odd, but, I was in a variety of different professions. And there was a lot of it involved public speaking, a lot of it involved just, communicating, whether it was in a training setting or, organizing events. And so all of that just kind of came together. It was, that line, something about all of my past experiences have, brought me to this moment. And it has just been a really good fit for me, and yet also extremely challenging. So, writing the book was a big challenge, and podcasting and putting together a group of women to create a network. When I first started, I remember sitting at my table crying because I did not know how to insert a link. I mean, there was like no technical knowledge on my plate whatsoever. And when I look back and I think, I started from a place where I knew nothing about technology or everything that goes into, working a blog and writing and maintaining it and building it. It's been a really great journey for myself. And I know that I've touched people, and that to me is very, very, it just really strikes my heart, because my heart is where those moms are who have a hard time going to sleep at night for fear of the future. And those are the moms that in particular that I want to reach. And if I have reached some of them, I've reached a lot of them, then I feel like that has just become just my purpose, because there are an awful lot of moms who grew up on a homestead. They grew up, on a farm. They grew up, with food storage being a way of life. But most of them didn't.
Right.
And for those moms, they don't know what to do next. They've never heard of storing food or what to store, how to store it, where to store it. And that really has, that's where my heart is toward that group of moms in particular.
So along that journey that you've had, has your prepping style, through all this research you've done, through all these blog posts that I see, you offer so much information. I'm guessing on your journey that your prepping style has changed from what it was maybe 6 years ago to what it is today. And what's your advice for somebody beginning in that journey themselves? Yeah.
I'm not as frantic as I was at first. And I think that fear actually gets a really bad rap. Because most of us, okay, I'm speaking from a woman's point of view, most of us would never go for that annual exam if we didn't have to, because there was just that faint fear in the back of our minds of, some kind of, female issues or, some kind of a cancer. So we go and we get the mammogram. And if it wasn't for that tiny dose of fear, we wouldn't do it. And fear actually propels us. It compels us to do some pretty smart things. Mm-hmm. And I think that for a lot of people getting into the whole prepper mindset, it's okay if you're starting out in fear, because if you weren't afraid of something, economic collapse, EMP, just the general direction of the country, whatever, you just want to be ready for emergencies. Whatever the case might be, that little bit of fear is making you do something really smart. And as far as prepping, what we're doing as a family, we're not a whole lot has changed, except we do have an awful lot of pieces in place. And we're not there at all. But I mean, we're 6 months ahead of where someone is who's done nothing, and that's where we started out. And I think that one of the first things that can be helpful to families is to have a talk with the people who are going to be involved with this. So a husband and wife chat, maybe bringing in older kids, grown kids, to see how many of us are on the same page. Because a lot of us, we hide our fears. And things that I'm worried about, Don, I don't really just go and broadcast everywhere. And so for all anyone might know, their loved ones, their very best friends, their closest confidants are also feeling those same twinges. And so one of the first steps is just kind of broach the subject, hey, how do you feel about the direction of the country, and what do you think may happen in the future with, one threat or another. And if someone just says, hey, I'm not there at all, that's fine. But I think that all of us are stronger when there are more of us working together toward the same goal. And along with that, just simultaneously, comes the need for gathering information. And just one piece of advice that I've given is for someone, no matter where they live, is just begin thinking, what is the most likely natural disaster where I live? What's the most likely one? Not all of them, but just, pick one that, you could see happening in the next year, next 2 or 3 or 4 years. And then ask yourself a second question, what is the most likely extreme weather event? All right. Just think that through. And then the third question is, what is the most likely man-made disaster? And then finally, what is the most likely personal disaster? And that could be losing a home, losing a job, losing a business. It could be a devastating medical condition. And you put all those together, and now you have a really short list to work from. And I find that a lot of times when those fears just kind of come upon us, it's like walking under this big gigantic black rain cloud. And there's nowhere to run, and you really can't identify, well, how do I get away? How do I, what do I do next? But if you just kind of, first of all, see if anybody else is on your side. Do you have anything, if there's just one other person, you have a team. And then just look at this really short list and say, okay, out of this list, 4 events, maybe 5 events, what do we want to prepare for first? And things just start falling into place once you identify and answer that question.
I can attest to that. It was funny. I faced I call it a personal economic collapse. I was probably going to lose my job. That's what I felt. And I had to approach my wife with this. And instead of saying, honey, I might lose my job, I kind of went the other route. I said, hey, we don't really know where anything's going. Why don't we prepare for the worst? And that little bit of communication sparked something so awesome. Within 20 minutes of starting it, we went through guns and ammo and food storage and producing our own food and things like that, to my wife wanting to buy a couple of Connex boxes, the big shipping containers, get them rhino lined and bury them in the backyard. So
yeah, that's awesome.
I found out how awesome my wife was. So
I love that.
So that is really good advice to both have the conversation and then get educated. I like that the steps that you've laid out there.
I like making the list.
Yeah.
I had never thought of that, but you're right. I mean, making a list and it really narrows down what you think.
Oh yeah, and it lets logic play
Yeah.
a part of it instead of letting your imagination go wild of all the things that could happen.
Yeah, absolutely.
Dinosaurs could come out of the earth and we could all be screwed.
Yeah.
You started off, you were afraid, you got a plan, and how did you make the transition from I'm soaking up knowledge to I'm a distributing source of knowledge? I mean, you've become an icon amongst preppers.
Wow.
And
Well,
not
thank you.
only moms, but I mean, I love your site.
Oh, thanks. Thank you. Recently we added 20 some expert writers, and they have so expanded the depth of information on my site. I'm so proud of them.
How did you move from student to teacher?
You know what? It was because I was a teacher. My very first career was a classroom teacher. I taught junior high. And then I moved from that career into one in which I taught teachers. And so I would conduct different kinds of workshops for teachers for a big school district in the Phoenix area. And kind of towards the end of that career, I launched into a sales career that was going to be on the side. And in sales, what are you doing? You're training and you're teaching and you're communicating. So when I began to put my emergency kits together and my vehicle emergency kits, I started making my own checklists. It just dawned on me one day, it would be so easy for me to teach other people how to do this. And the first thing I did actually at the Cabela's out there in Peoria, I taught a class that was called Wilderness Survival for Kids. And I only taught it just, I don't even know, maybe a half dozen different classes. But then I began teaching food storage and different prepper classes at the Honeyville farm store.
Oh yeah.
And I enjoyed that. I really do enjoy meeting people. And it was such a natural occurrence. It didn't really even feel like I was doing something odd because this is what I had always done in my other, my previous careers.
I've got another question for you. Everybody, it seems that we run into in prepping. I mean, we're all about growing your own food. And my passion is to use aquaponics to grow a garden. My wife is into the goats for the milk and the essential oils. She loves her essential oils, and she's actually getting me on board with that. I know Nick is into the rabbits and meat rabbits and the food storage systems, the live food storage systems that he does. His wife enjoys canning. What's your your favorite type of prep that you've run across doing this? What's your passion about in prepping?
Oh, wow. I don't know that I've ever thought about it that way. I know when it came to food preservation, the very first thing that I ever tried and continued with was food dehydration. Mostly because living in Phoenix, just having these big, huge, gigantic pots of boiling water on my stovetop, for an entire afternoon, whatever, in the summer just didn't appeal to me. And so I was a little late to the whole canning scene, whereas I could just, turn on my dehydrator, let it run overnight, and, bingo, I have dehydrated, mushrooms or tomatoes or whatever. So I've always enjoyed that just because it was so simple to do. But other than that, I think my passion right now, it seems to be just learning more. I recently completed a CERT training class. I was looking at another class that's being offered by the city of Houston. Actually, it would be a little bit of a drive for me, but they are in need of volunteer chaplains to go to homeless shelters and things like that. And I'm putting that in the back of my mind. So I'm just kind of thinking of, what else can I do? I never rest. I can never rest. I guess the podcast network right now is a really big project for me. I didn't realize how much it had grown up until about maybe a month and a half, 2 months ago. And so just keeping all of these things going. One day, it's like realizing, oh my gosh, I have these podcast deadlines. And then that afternoon, oh my gosh, I've got to edit these articles. So it's turned into a business, even though that really wasn't my original intent. So balancing that with actual prepping is something that I have to keep an eye on.
Oh, I hear you. We started this as thinking it was going to be fun and it is. We have a blast doing the podcast, but there's some work involved in it too. So, and I know you run another 10 people in there that you help manage and put all together. I can't imagine doing that. I mean, that just sounds like a full-time job. I can hardly handle one podcast. So now I do have to ask you, I don't know if you've heard of this, but just the other day I had talked to a company called Harvest Right who sent us some samples of freeze-dried food that they have this little home unit, and your dehydrator kind of thing brought me to that. Have you tried any of those freeze dryers yet?
All I have heard about them is their very high price tag.
They are.
Does this one have a little lower price tag?
4,000.
Yeah, right around 3,500, 4,000. And I'm looking at it thinking, okay, well, over a year, we could probably, in the food we throw away or that we compost or give to our chickens, frankly, because we don't usually throw anything away, but we could save probably, a good $2,000 a year doing that. So definitely something I'm interested in, and I'm hoping that I'll see something on your site around that soon. So.
Oh, yeah, maybe they'll just give me one to test and then keep for my very own. But
There you go.
At some point, I know when I was teaching out at Honeyville Farms, and then I began to buy products from Augustin Farms and Thrive Life. One day I was sitting at my kitchen table and I looked at this big number 10 can of dehydrated green onions. And I looked at that and I said, okay, Lisa, how many green onions would you have to grow to fill this number 10 can?
Right.
And I think that can was less than $10. So what I am doing with food storage and food, and preserving food is I'm looking at that, saying, all right, how much time is involved, what's the money variable, and then making my decisions from there, because sometimes it just doesn't make sense.
Yeah.
Growing food is way more difficult than it looks. And I mean, it might take 2 or 3 or 4 years, maybe more, to really get a thriving garden where you can say, okay, we have enough food now, for today, and then we have enough to preserve, whether it's by canning or dehydrating, for tomorrow. So I just try to be practical and say, you know what, I'm going to buy those cans of, the cans of mushrooms or the cans of whatever, because it just makes sense to do that. But then there are other things where it does make sense to do your own canning and dehydrating. And I think we just all have to look at different factors and go from there.
Yes.
That's good advice.
It is good advice. And that's one of the things that, we talk about is you got to have stored food ready to go. In the event of an emergency, you need time to get other things going. And one of the reasons we came together is unless you have the ability to store years of food, you're going to have empty shelves.
Right.
There has to be
Right.
a way to resupply. And honestly, in the middle of the desert, I'm sure that you've had experience some way or another with gardening in the desert. It's not exactly easy.
No. Now, Phoenix has 2 growing seasons. And if you can get your soil together and you can find where in your yard to position your garden, you can do pretty well. But every location has its drawbacks. So now where we are, we have these incredibly huge, massive trees, pines and oaks, and our backyard is basically perpetually shaded. So our challenge now is to do our research. Okay, here we are and, we're in the northeast of Houston. What can grow here in the shade with the soil that we have? And it's a whole different ballgame. And years ago, a farmer told me that, he said it takes 10 years to get to know your land. And of course, he was growing food on a much bigger scale, but that was exactly right. The first year you plant A, B, C, and D, and none of it grows. Well, what did we do wrong? Well, there's 1 year under your belt. It doesn't take long, for 4 or 5 years to move on until you finally think, okay, now we know the varieties of tomatoes. We know where to plant the onions. We know when to pull up the garlic. And it takes, it's nothing you can do quickly, that's for sure.
Yeah, no, I understand. I mean, just watching the first year, you're supposed to watch where the water goes. And that's a big thing in permaculture. That's why I could never get into doing that. I moved into aquaponics and I grow all of our food year round and I don't have that problem.
Right.
So, it's just a lot easier for me. I enjoy the tinkering more than the gardening aspect of it. I like the tinkering and the getting a system to go and that whole chemical balancing thing. It just makes sense to me.
It's more fun than working a hoe.
Yeah, it really, so I completely understand where you're at. So Lisa, again, I just want to kind of thank you for coming on. And I want to leave our listeners with a little bit more advice from you when they're getting started. Your number one piece of advice or your number one question and answer maybe that you're getting.
One question. Yeah, I know one question that I have gotten for many years is how do I get my family on board? And I touched on that a little bit, where you just kind of start, bringing up the subject. Because there may be people around you who they may already have, 3 months of food storage. Maybe they're raising rabbits or chickens in the backyard and you don't even know it. So I would say just do not be so fearful about just talking with others about it, because you're not giving anything away. I think sometimes a lot of the experts in this field have created such a high level of paranoia that it actually can work against us. And, I would suggest, getting into places where preppers would normally go. CERT classes, for example, classes from the American Red Cross. People who tend to be survival minded, they're the ones taking the backyard chicken classes. And they're the ones taking the permaculture, very, very often. And so rather than just being so worried about, what someone's going to say and they're going to take everything, I would just suggest, if you really are interested in joining with people around you, worry less about, how can I talk my family into this if they're dead set against it. It's like trying to talk, a lifelong smoker into giving up cigarettes. Right. And you can present all kinds of evidence and charts and graphs and gross looking photos, but it's not really going to convince them. And so see what you can do to reach out to other people, and that would be a really good starting place.
Well, as a lifelong smoker who recently changed and doesn't smoke anymore, I understand what you're saying. So, Lisa, the Survival Mom website, where else can we find you, and where should our listeners go looking for you?
Oh, well, thank you. The website is thesurvivalmom.com. The podcast network is survivalmomradio.com. My book is called Survival Mom, and it's on Amazon, and it's online at the different book selling websites like Barnes & Noble. And you can get it from bookstores. If they don't have it, I know they'll order it for you. But I appreciate your very kind words, because, sometimes when you're doing something you really are enjoying, I don't really have a concept, other than, some people commenting on my blog or they send me emails, that anyone is even reading stuff. And so it's a good feeling, actually, to hear from you and know that there are people reading and listening. I appreciate that.
Absolutely. I'm glad you're doing it, because like I said, I learn every day. You have helped to get my wife on board into the whole movement too.
Oh,
we talk about that communication, and, I say to her, hey, why don't you go check out this site? There's some things on there like the essential oils. This is something that you posted a recent article about, 5 essential oils you should have in every purse. And that's one of those articles that draws my wife in and helps support that. My wife is supportive of the prepping that I do anyway, but it really gets her more involved with me. So I just appreciate you taking the time to do it.
Yeah. And after I read the article, I bought myself a purse. No, just kidding. I needed a purse to put the oils in. I don't know.
And, Lisa, one other thing. What's your Facebook page?
Oh, you're going to have to look on Facebook for, I think it's just, The Survival Mom.
Okay. I will.
I have not been able to get the personalized Facebook page, and I don't know what happened, but anyway, The Survival Mom, and I'm there.
Mom. Okay. And I will go ahead and get links to all of that, your radio network, your webpage, your book, and your Facebook and Twitter and everything else I can find on you. We will go ahead and post that on our show notes at wegrowers.com.
All right. Thank you very much. I appreciate it.
Well, Lisa, thank you so much for joining us today, and we look forward to hearing from you again. And maybe the next time you got a book coming out, you can give us a call. We'll get you back on the show.
All right. Thank you. Hopefully that'll be in the next month or two.
Ooh, there we go.
Yay.
All right. Great. It's a date.
That was fun. I really like her.
It's a good segue from one thing to another. That was fun.
Oh, it was.
It was.
Oh, it's cool because you read somebody's blog and you go through all of the stuff that they've done and you put them up on a pedestal. It's like, oh man, this is the source. This is where girls with kids go to really learn something about prepping, and this is where all of these things, and this is a great source of information.
It's not just girls with kids that go there.
Well, Survival Mom. Okay, I'm just saying, as far as there's places where you can go and get advice on what guns to prep.
Yeah.
You've got,
she's got
reloading places. You've got all of these things, but she covers some things that the guys aren't thinking of. So I say moms with kids, girls. It's a girl's perspective. I'm sorry, I don't have that ability to get a girl's perspective. I've never been one.
Oh, yeah. Well, I can't. What am I going to say there? Me neither.
Me neither. Anyway, so yeah, it's cool to have a conversation with somebody and you realize how down to earth they are, and they're still this great source of wealth of knowledge.
Well, frankly, this is one of the things I love doing about the podcast.
Oh yeah,
we get to talk to all these awesome different people, and these people that we've read their blogs and looked at their stuff, and the Survival Mom has a great podcast, 10 people on that. And I love listening to some of that. I don't listen very often to all of it, but I do go on there, and it gives us ideas for the show. And it's more geared toward women in those, but it's just phenomenal to know that somebody's out there doing that, and it brings so much information to the market. So
that's right.
Trying not to put my foot in my mouth.
Yeah. Anywho, so we touched a little bit on some places where you can go to start buying your canned goods and stuff.
Yeah.
And why don't we go ahead and do the shout out of the week?
Yeah.
You're not going to want it? What? No?
Yeah, go ahead. Do it.
Okay.
It's your turn.
My turn. I choose you, Honeyville in Chandler. Honeyville's a great place. There's actually some classes that they give down there. So if you're in Arizona and you're close to Chandler, or even if you're not close to Chandler, Honeyville's a great place to go to get all of your canned foods and things like that.
Yeah, Lisa said she taught a couple classes out there.
That's right.
That's
right. They've taught a lot of survival-minded classes, a lot of homemaking classes, as well as homesteading.
They're down at 33 South 56th Street in Chandler, Arizona.
My mind serves me. That's just south of Ray Road.
Yes. Yeah, you can find them at www.honeyville.com. So, shout out of the week, Honeyville Farms. And I love that place. I wish it wasn't so far away from me because I really like going in there. There's always something you want to buy.
Well, let me know because I drive by there almost every day.
Do you?
Yeah. I just stop in and buy you stuff.
Well, and we try to prep at home and we do all this. We go out and we buy like the freeze-dried food, and we were talking about that home freeze dryer. Part of the reason I want one is because we go through a lot of freeze-dried food. We'll go in there and buy a 3-month supply, and my kids eat it all.
Well, yeah,
they love it.
It's dangerous, not dangerous, but it's, if you don't add water to it, you don't fill up on it. And so you'll just be nom, nom, nom,
but they're eating their vegetables.
Yes.
They'll get freeze-dried broccoli and just munch away on it. And peas, they love peas. And
in my opinion, it tastes better than any potato chip you could ever get.
I know, that's the thing. You get all this freeze-dried food. Mm-hmm. So we go down there, and the other day I went and I looked, there was one of our boxes of food open. I was like, what? We had this cheddar broccoli soup that we had gotten. I think it was from Honeyville. This cheddar broccoli soup that was just amazing. It's all gone. My kids ate it all for lunches. They keep going in and cooking all this soup. So I got to make another trip down there
Let me know what you want. I'll stop by.
I will. I'll give you a whole shopping list.
It's going to be your credit card though.
Oh, well, that's no fun then, is it? I was going to say, buy me a year's worth of food, Nick.
Yeah, that'll happen.
Yeah.
That'll be the day.
No, so, we've also got another announcement I want to bring up today, and that's the film screening. We've kind of talked about we're going to be doing a film screening.
Now we've got a date.
It's August 23rd at 3 p.m. So mark your calendars down. It's a Saturday.
Okay.
Yep. We're going to kind of do a matinee.
It's going to be a matinee.
We're going to do a screening of the movie Food Patriots. And again, this is kind of following a family that has decided to make a 10% change in their life. And they go out and they interview some other people and go around and visit some different farms and see what other people are doing. But it's really their story on how they did this and why they did this and the change and the impact that can make. So the reason we're doing this isn't just to show the movie. We're going to try and raise some funds for a good cause. And our cause this time is Gompers Rehabilitation Center. That's where the screening will be. This is down on 27th Avenue, right near Bethany Home. We'll put all of the details up. It is free to come. We're going to have limited seatings, but it is free. So what we're doing is we're just asking, come on in. Nick and I are going to give a little talk, maybe talk a little bit about integration, how we do this, maybe show some pictures, and put on kind of a 15-minute class on how you can do this yourself. And then we're going to show the screening. We're asking for some donations to go to a good cause and to help keep a garden program at Gompers. So we'll get all the links on that and get everything finalized in the next week. But we've got the date, August 23rd, 3 p.m. That's Saturday at 3 p.m. So mark that on your calendars. I hope everybody can make it down. If you can donate $1, great. If you can donate more, we'd love to see it. And it's going to a good cause. Let's keep the garden program at Gompers, help them improve that. Maybe even put an aquaponics system in for them.
Ooh.
Yeah. Would that be nice?
That would be.
All right. What else, Nick?
That's pretty much it. Thank you guys for tuning in or clicking on, I guess. There's really no tuning into podcasts.
Good point.
Well, thanks for clicking on.
Yeah. Check us out, prepperbroadcasting.com on Monday nights. We do a live chat. Facebook.com/WeGrowOurs, Twitter @WeGrowOurs, YouTube, whatever, YouTube us.
Mm-hmm.
It's on our website.
Yeah, go to the website. That'll take you to YouTube.
Absolutely. Thanks again to our new sponsors and, show them some support too if you like the show.
Okay, bye.